So as Patrick said, I'm Thomas. I'm going to be talking to you about funding. So a few points I want to point out. A few things I want to mention, sorry. Firstly is 2 funds that we've got available at TVA. So you may have seen these through social media or via email, which has been shared with you direct. I just want to promote it a bit more to yourselves. So the first one is Tva Engagement Fund, which is part of the VSCF, which we had throughout COVID last year. The idea of this grant is now to help you with starting again after COVID, so post-COVID activities. So you may have a new project idea, or you may feel there's some important work that needs to be carried out to ensure that your facilities that you're using is safe for the community to use in future. So the grant maximum has changed to 10,000. So this would be over a 9-month scale. So your money has to be spent by March 22. But we're giving you the chance to, expand on an idea. If you have a new project idea, we're more than happy to discuss it with you in more detail and support you with your application going forward. The other fund we have is the ICF. So this one is a maximum of £20,000. And the idea of this project is, is to support projects who are working with having a major impact on the community. So the type of themes that you need to link your project with is older people, people with learning disabilities, so that's old and young, children with complex needs, carers, and early intervention and support for supporting children to survive and with the families. So there's no fixed major fixed criteria on this. There is some things that you need to be aware of, but I can easily send that information over after the session if you would like to know more about it. So those are the 2 funds available. Both of them have a deadline of applications being in by the 31st of May this month. If you wanted to have some feedback or some support, send an application over before then, and myself and a few colleagues will review and pass on any suitable support as we can. So the next thing I want to promote, if you can change slide, Patrick. Oh, I'm still looking at the same one. Sorry, Patrick. There we are. So we've got 2 funding sessions coming up this month. The first one I want to promote quite a bit is localgiving.com. So this is basically like a fundraising page like Local Giving, but it's more for a free of charge service. We're giving you the chance to create your own appeal. So if you're looking for maybe £1,000 to buy equipment for children's activities or something, this type of thing you can use for that. The sessions are online. We have got an Eventbrite page which you can reach from our website. So again, this is something we can share with you at a later date. The next one is the National Lottery Heritage Fund. Now this is an idea that came to mind after dealing with them myself. There's a few organisations I know who would be happy to attend this. So the lottery will be they want to engage with our members, especially in Tourvine, and just try and see what ideas you have. So if you have an idea that engages with not necessarily just the heritage, maybe environment of the heritage area as well, we'd be more than happy to share that with you. And it's a free attendance, so just click on the link and you can join the session from there. And that's it from funding at the moment. Anything else will be shared with you through social media and the platforms.
Thank you very much, Tom. As Thomas just said, we will be sharing out all the links to the different funding and the funding events after this event today, and Thomas's contact details will also be available there too. So from funding, we move to volunteering in Tourvine, and to talk more about that, here's Callum.
Sorry, just take myself off mute before I go into a big old sort of sentence about volunteering. If you can just move on a slide for us, Patrick, I think there's a little bit of a delay.
Bit of delay, yes.
So yeah, for those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Callum, one of the third sector development officers here at TVA, with a bit of a focus on volunteering alongside Thomas and funding really. So yeah, a couple of updates I think that I'd like to mention, specifically sort of now in the next couple of weeks, I guess, some updates and some activities and campaigns that are sort of are taking off now in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So the first of which is National Volunteers Week. So for those of you that don't know what National Volunteers Week is, it's a week in which the UK nationally recognise volunteers and the great work and the response that they have really. And I think over the last year, obviously there's been a focus on COVID volunteers, but I think it's important not to forget about those volunteers that have been there for sort of a number of years, volunteered pre-pandemic, for the last sort of five or 10 years. So it's about recognising all volunteers and really celebrating the work that they do. So we got a few different bits that we've got planned here at TVA and that we've been working on over the last couple of months that will all sort of come off now, I guess, throughout Volunteers Week. So the first of which we've worked on some community hero plaques, and the plan is to go out and sort of present those throughout the week to community hubs and venues across Tourvine that have had a bit of a I guess made an outstanding contribution to their community throughout COVID. And yeah, we went along and seen those yesterday. Some lovely plaques that can hopefully sit on the side of venues and buildings across Tourvine for the next sort of 15 or 20 years. We hope to have that to be recognised for quite some time. So we'll be doing that throughout the first week in June and probably much after as well throughout June and over the course of the summer. So keep a lookout for all that on our social media. Even if you think there's a venue or a hub that we should be recognising that perhaps we've missed, we've worked with many of the sort of pop-up groups and food banks over the last year, but if there is a group out there that you feel that should be recognised, do let us know. The second part here, a themed recognition video. So back towards the beginning of April, actually, we put out the first of this series of themed videos in which we're recognising volunteers, and that first one did take a look at the great work that volunteers are doing within food banks and food hubs. So that's all on our website, across our social media and our YouTube channel and everything. So do go and take a look at that. But moving forward now into June, we'll be creating the next in that series, which is going to take a little bit of a look at loneliness. So still recognising volunteers and the contribution that they've made, but those that have supported that loneliness area more so. And there's also National Loneliness Week, which I believe follows Volunteers Week. So that ties in quite nicely there. And again, if you are aware or you're from a group or organisation that has supported that loneliness work and you have volunteers that you work with, do let us know, because again, we'd like to come out and do a little bit of recognising and filming there. So we're working with a local filmmaker, and we're really pleased with the outcome of the last one. And as I said, it's a series, so expect some more themed films and videos throughout the rest of the year and the summer. More generally then, I think promoting the campaign via social media, and we have now for some time, started last year during Volunteers Week, been using hashtag Tourvine Says Thanks. And I mean, if you just tap that in on Twitter, you can get a real sense for the work that that has been happening. You know, we've used it largely across many of our communications and our tweets, but now we're starting to see some other organisations and individuals using that whilst promoting on Twitter. So yeah, do tap that in on Twitter and see a little bit of a snapshot of all the great work that's been happening. We've built it into the themed videos as well, as I said. So yeah, do get involved with the campaign on social media. We've got a few different bits and pieces going out over the course of the week, some volunteer stories and that kind of thing, and we'll be sharing lots of other good bits and pieces there as well. So yeah, other than that, it's really a case of getting in touch to discuss ideas or connect with other organisations and share your plan. So that's a little bit about what we've got going on throughout the week, but we'd really love to hear what you guys have got planned within your organisations and with your volunteers. And now as part of that, there is a campaign communications pack, which isn't being hosted on our website or anything just yet. That was only sort of received earlier this week, but if you would like to receive that pack, it includes sort of suggested tweets, suggested communications, ideas of things that you can do with your volunteers. Obviously a little more difficult maybe now with some restrictions still in place, but you know, online coffee mornings, virtual coffee mornings, afternoons, those kind of things. So it's got lots of ideas and some communications type stuff in there as well that you can use to share with your volunteers. All the logos and everything is included in there as well, and even some bunting and that kind of thing that you can print off and sort of do up the background, you know, for your coffee morning or something like that. So yeah, do let us know if you'd like one of those. I know we've got one or two sort of volunteer coordinators on. I think Lucy's with us and Rose that work with volunteers more so within their organisation. So be really keen to hear what you've got planned with those. And perhaps it is a case of having a bit of a chat with us. You know, as it says here, come and discuss ideas and maybe link up with some organisations, you know, have a bit of a joint celebration, virtual celebration online. So that's all about Volunteers Week, and obviously just about 3 weeks away now. So busy period sort of planning that and celebrating that week. Moving on to our community of volunteers. So this is something that a little bit of a project that we've been working on since the beginning of the year. I think sort of January, we was, you know, lucky enough to receive some Welsh Government funding, and we are partnered up with Tourvine County Borough Council and Nair Bevan Health Board to do some of this work, including the recognition work there above. But the real focus has been on building a community of volunteers for Tourvine, and that is something that we're still developing, and there are, you know, a fair sized group there of individuals that are ready to support organisations in Tourvine. So and that's exactly what it is. It's a group of individuals who are willing to volunteer. They've reached out to us and said, yes, I'd like to volunteer, and you know, we've started to now gather a little bit of an idea and a picture on their availability, some skill sets that could be best used to enable us to better place volunteers. They've completed an induction with us, where we're starting to put together that availability profile and a bit of an idea on their skill sets and that kind of thing. Throughout January, February and March, sort of early part of this year, some of those individuals had attended various introductory training sessions. So some of those individuals are first aid trained now and done some digital training, some safeguarding awareness bits and pieces. So they are, you know, they are sort of well prepared, I guess, to come and support your organisations, and maybe just needing to pick up on a couple of specific bits that are needed within you know, any training within your organisation. And yeah, that final point is there that they are ready to support your organisation. You know, they're fully aware of the you know, the idea behind volunteering, and they're you know, they're ready to support. So that is something that we've been building and developing. I sort of see that getting to a number of maybe sort of 40 or more individuals across Tourvine that can very quickly sort of come in place and support within their communities, you know, should they be needed. So I just had a chat with one of the gentlemen on in that group this morning, and he's, you know, really eager to get started on some other bits of volunteering. So yeah, a real sort of eager group that we've got there ready to volunteer. So my third point there, so the Tourvine Volunteer Management Network, which we actually held our network meeting just earlier last week. But this is a forum and space for volunteer coordinators working in Tourvine to collaborate and share best practice and a bit of an insight to their work and that kind of thing. So we brought that together last week. We'll have a meeting now scheduled sometime in September. But yeah, really, as I say, I know we've got a couple of volunteer coordinators or individuals working with volunteers. It's open to anyone who works with volunteers and that are involved with volunteers to get a bit of an insight, really, and a network in the first instance, talk to other colleagues and share some, you know, some bits and pieces that work for them. You know, just last week we had Volunteers Week on the agenda, and there were some ideas being floated about there. We talked about the idea of employer supported volunteering expenses. So yeah, a real space and opportunity for coordinators or volunteer managers to come along and come and talk to one another, really, and share an insight. We are working on the name as well. The name, the small group that we do have taken a look at the name, and I think we'll be moving to a slightly different name. I think Management Network sounds a little forum. You know, it's a real friendly space, and you know, that we've got there in a group. So yeah, there's some bits there that I wanted to talk about as for some updates. And the last point there is that we want to hear from you. So in terms of volunteering, has your recruitment restarted? Do you require support promoting opportunities? And then lastly, are you registered on the Volunteering Wales website? So, you know, there's been a little bit of a change over the last couple of weeks or so. There's activities of, you know, some organisations have been able to restart their activities, and more and more volunteers maybe now are getting back involved with their organisation that they used to volunteer with. But we certainly recognise that maybe some organisations will have a bit more of a recruitment drive, if you like, that they need to put together. You know, how many volunteers have you got returning? You know, do you need more support? Do you need some advice around restarting and that kind of thing? So yeah, generally wanting to hear from you on how we can better support, and if you are recruiting volunteers and a need of volunteers, let us know. You know, we need to know that these opportunities and activities are being restarted, and you know, as I say, we've got a fair sized group of volunteers coming on there in the community of volunteers that are looking for opportunities. So yeah, that's it from me in terms of some volunteering updates. I know our information's at the end of the presentation, isn't it, Patrick? But any questions, opening it up to any questions, or I know there's some bits in the chat as well.
Callum, thank you. Let's move on then. Callum, they're talking about, you know, volunteering and the way things are starting to change now with different things and your venues, community groups starting to restart. Let me kind of make sure it is going into the right slide. We recently held a community venue forum with the Benevolent Health, talking about opening up your venues your organisations running groups safely in a COVID secure way. There's more information about that. We can share the link to the YouTube video on that session. Also, in terms of sessions, we have got quite a few coming up in the next couple of weeks. We've got together with Bullies Out to provide a free course, a guide to mentoring. It's a CBD certified training session for adults, for people living in Wales, which I'm kind of guessing everybody is on the call. We have that available at the moment. That's running in the next week or so, as we've also got a session with RCT Citizens Advice, talking all about gambling awareness. For those, you can go on our website. It's tvawales.org.uk/events, and of course we will send out the link after this presentation today. We've also got the podcast. Now, the podcast is still quite a new development for us. We've now currently got 12 different podcasts which cover all different organisations here in Tourvine, including care and repair. We talk about pickleball, which, if you've never really known about pickleball, is something to behold. It's quite a fast-paced sport, put it that way. Plus, we're talking about the volunteering awards that we held last year and Trustees Week. The latest podcast is available now, and this month, this week, is Mental Health Awareness Week. So with that in mind, we have got the latest podcast with Bullies Out. So if you want to learn more about their work, please have a listen. Again, I'll send the link out after this presentation today. And if you do want to become part of our podcast, if you think that it's a great way to get your information out there, I think last year 15.6 million people downloaded a podcast. So in terms of lockdown, in terms of not really being able to do much, that channel for information has most certainly grown massively. So if you do want to get in touch, please get in touch. We'll have all the information, as I say, at the end of this presentation. With that as well, we have got a new platform that's currently in development. It's for community groups and individuals here in Tourvine to connect. So it's called Connect Tourvine. For any community groups, for any people wanting to know more about what's happening in Tourvine, we have the information on there. You will be in charge of your own information. It is a community-based network, and as I say, that's currently in development. And when it gets launched, everybody will be notified. I know some people on the call, I think, have already signed up to it. So you can kind of see, if you want any more information, please get in touch, and we can kind of guide you through the registration process and what exactly it does. With that, then, I can now stop sharing my screen for a little while.
Sorry, Patrick.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Sorry, Vicky has a hand up.
Oh, OK, sorry, go on.
Hello, sorry, I just wanted to add in around the governance update, but I wasn't able to put it into this presentation as the meeting was only yesterday afternoon, so new news, I suppose. So there's the Charity Commission continue to have their 5-minute guide for trustees on their website, so I'll share that link with you all. But more of an important update is that the Insolvency Act and the AGM policies for trustees and committees has changed, where you need to ensure that any AGMs that are taking place, that your constitution allows it to be over the telephone or online. So you will need to check your constitution to be able to ensure that you can do that session remotely. But I'll share the link where the guidance is for you. But that is an updated guidance that has just been announced. So I'll share that. That's all. I'll let you take back over, Patrick.
Thank you, Victoria. We will send, of course, all the information out after this session as well, as part of, a main email. So with that, then, I'd like to welcome our guest speaker today, Neil Tomlin from the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund. Neil, if you'd like to share your screen, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Patrick. I'll just try and do that without making a complete horse's hoof of it, but hopefully that should be. Are you able to see that now?
Not yet, no.
Right, let me just try that again. Any joy?
Not yet.
Always works well in rehearsal and then goes wrong. Do bear with me, I do apologise. Right, let's just see where we are.
Neil, do you want me to share your presentation?
Actually, that might be a better way to do it. I'll just give it one last go, and if we can't get that to work, then here we go. I think we might be there.
There we are.
Have you got that now?
Yep.
Right, fantastic. Thank you. Well, thank you very much indeed for the opportunity to speak. There's a few familiar faces in the audience, so I do apologise if some of you have heard the content before, but what I wanted to do is just give a quick canter through about the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund and how we're reaching out at the moment to communities all across the UK in order to reach more veterans and support more veterans and veteran agencies in support more widely. So yeah, my name's Neil Tomlin. I retired from the RAF a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. Specifically, I retired early specifically to take up this job. I'd worked with the RAF Benevolent Fund throughout my RAF career on and off, and this was just an opportunity to have a second career doing something I really very much cared about. So as I say, I come from an RAF background, and I say what I'll do is I'll take you through what the fund has been doing and particularly touch on a few of the areas such as the COVID-19 and how we've responded to that. So the slide says it all, really. This is who we are. We work in association with a number of other charities, SAFA and RAFA predominantly, but we're there to provide that practical and emotional and financial support to members of the RAF family. So the RAF family is quite a broad church. It's anybody who has ever served in the Royal Air Force, their wife or partner, spouse or partner, and any dependents. And normally that's school-aged children, but as you'll be aware, quite often there are exceptions to that rule. And that number's about 1.2 million people in the across the UK and in fact across the world. So about 1.2 million people eligible for our services, and from that number we know that there are a significant number at the moment who are in immediate are in need of immediate support. I touched on the fact that we work with other organisations. This is really, really important to us. We're in terms of numbers, the charity is just over 100 people strong. And so clearly we can't be everywhere and all things to all people. And so we're very proud to work alongside a number of organisations, some of whom you see represented on this slide. In terms of financial support, we're also able to support them in return for their help to us. So, for example, SAFA and RAFA, who are our eyes and ears on the ground in terms of providing caseworker support, we provided, and I'm giving you 2019 figures at the moment. We're still collating figures from last year, but in 2019 we funded RAFA to the tune of about £3.4 million. SAFA just short of 3 million, and the Royal British Legion just over £500,000, and that's in recognition of the work that their caseworkers do in providing casework to us for funding. Excuse me. So as I say, we absolutely couldn't do it on our own, and we rely very, very much on organisations, and it doesn't have to be the big ones that are mentioned there, and hence why I'm really keen to engage in forums like this, where we can see how we can mutually support each other to achieve those shared aims. Our vision is really quite straightforward. No member of the RAF family will ever face adversity alone, and that is I'm not a great one for strap lines and vision statements, but actually I think that sort of sums it up really neatly, and the word adversity seems to sit very well with our veteran beneficiaries who recognise that, and that tends to assist, because that very population or demographic that feels there's a certain stigma, I think, attached to asking for charity, and I think hopefully that vision statement helps overcome that, and certainly that's the feedback that we get. But I say again, 2019 figures. 71,700 people, members of the RAF family, were supported by us, and then you'll see the other figures there below. To put that into context, we know that there's over 300,000 people at the moment from the 1.2 million I mentioned earlier who are in need of some form of support, and we also know that of that 300,000, there's 100,000 plus who are in urgent need of support. So while we're very proud of the figure that's shown there, clearly there's work to be done, and we need to be engaging and reaching out to more people. The biggest there's three problems really that prevent us from achieving our goals. The first one is, do people know about us? And clearly there's a certain amount we can do about that. If people do know about us, do they realise that they're eligible for our support? And that's particularly important for veterans, because clearly the not so much working age veterans, although it is important there, but for retired veterans, some of whom are now in that age group where support is more likely to be required, it's really important that they understand that even though they left the RAF many years ago, they and their families can still be supported by us. And if you think of the national service generation, the youngest of whom now approaching 80 years old, you know, that is an organisation of people, or a group of people, who may have only served a couple of years in the RAF in the 50s. They may not have pursued a career in the military after that, may have been working in something totally different. So unlike somebody like myself, who still feels to be a vocational service person, they're going to be not perhaps sharing that same feeling. So it's really important that we're able to reach those communities and say, look, you served for within the Royal Air Force, you are a lifelong member of the fund, and we're here to support you. And then the third problem I guess we have, and which I've already touched on, is that military people are not very good at asking for support. You know, you're trained all the way through your career to be self-sufficient, self-reliant, and asking for assistance and support is not something that comes naturally to most, and particularly the older generation. I've clubbed together some of the areas in which we provide support there, and I'll elaborate on those in the coming slides. But those are some of the big areas that have been our focus, and in particular going through the pandemic, and emotional well-being, loneliness in particular, has been on the rise. And although the figures that I've shown you are for 2019, the 2020 figures, which are starting to emerge now, show that there's been a much greater call for support with that type of support, and we have veered and hauled our efforts accordingly, and resourced more heavily in certain areas to try and meet that caseload. It was interesting at the beginning of the pandemic, actually, the number of calls that we received and the contacts that we received dropped dramatically, which was something of a surprise to us at the time, but seems to have been consistent across the charity sector. And I think that was perhaps people focusing on the immediate concerns over COVID. As we've stepped through, and particularly as we're now stepping out of what we hope will be the final wave, the calls upon our support have gone up quite dramatically. So I think the figures for this year are going to be, or last year and this year, are going to be slightly skewed by those events. But I think the conclusion we've drawn is that there is going to be an increasing need for our support, and support from the charity sector in general. And as I say, those are some of the sort of headline areas in which we get involved. But what I would say, and what I would really reiterate, is the fund is about providing bespoke support to individuals and families. Yes, we provide services in what you see up there, but actually we treat every case as an individual case, whether it's a family or an individual. And if we don't have an immediate solution or a referral, a sort of partner organisation with whom we can call on their support, then we will find a way of addressing those needs. As we know, welfare, relationship problems and personnel problems do not, or very rarely, fit into neat pigeonholes, and it's important that we're able to look at people as individuals or family as individual families, and not to try and pigeonhole the support that we provided to any particular area. So with emotional well-being, these are really the main areas that we look to supply or that have been popular, if you like, and the themes that we have been providing for some time, but have actually put additional resource into during the COVID campaign, and I suspect we'll continue to do so from here. So we have a listening and counselling service. We have bereavement support. Sadly, there's going to be more call for that, and we're already seeing that. And also online services such as mindfulness training, and again, that's accessed through our listening and counselling service. A small snapshot there of what we do, but we've spent just over £500,000 on listening and counselling and emotional wellbeing so far in the last 18 months. And our listening and counselling services has actually been extended to cater for age groups of 5 to 18. It used to be 18 plus. We've now got specialist services in place, obviously with all the correct checks and balances in place, but we're providing a listening and counselling service for children aged 5 to 18 years. Friendships and connections, again, really important as we go through here, and the social isolation and loneliness very much on the increase, particularly in rural communities. And again, that's why we're really keen to engage with groups that are focusing support in that area. We had telephone friendship groups have been running. We started that as a pilot about 2 years ago. That was growing steadily and then grew exponentially as we stepped through COVID, and we've put funding in to cover that. So these are groups of people who meet once a week on the telephone. It's we have a moderator who's professionally trained just to make sure that everything that goes on within those calls is appropriate, but also to make sure that they run smoothly. And those have been really popular with many of our veterans, hence why we've put more money into those. We've also funded a program called Community Engagement Workers, and initially these went into counties where there was a high veteran population and where the feedback we've been getting from our support agencies and the other charities we work alongside were telling us that there was a need to do this. And these are salaried individuals. We had them in 4 counties, predominantly Lincolnshire and the South East initially, but we're now just introducing 2 more, one in Hampshire, one in Sussex, where again there's been evidence to suggest that there is a call for these people. And these are very much, these guys and ladies work very closely with individuals. Clearly we haven't been able to do home visits and things like that during the pandemic, but that's starting to come online now. And that's about getting people involved in their local community to try and bring them out of their shells, if you like, to introduce them to what's going on in their local community, and to introduce them to other people so that they can engage socially and interact and have that new degree of engagement and activity in their lives that might not have been there before. It was run as a 2-year pilot. It was very successful. The feedback we got from it was very positive, and so we have, as I say, extended that into 2 more counties now, and we've very much got our eyes and ears on the ground to look for other areas where perhaps something like that might provide benefit. And again, that's why it's really important for us that we're able to engage with forums like yours, where we can sort of get feedback on what's going on in the local area and look to see if there's more that we can do to engage with your services and to assist. Social engagement workers was a pilot we got involved with the serving RAF. in that respect, it was slightly less successful, and we're adjusting that at the moment. And that was very much about recognising isolation and loneliness amongst, in particular, what we call the singlies, the young first tourists, the people that are new to the service, get posted to an area that's completely away from home, family and friends. And as we know, some people are better at engaging socially than others. And we ran a pilot scheme here on a couple of stations that were particularly remote, to see what we could do to engage there. What we've learned from that is that there are better ways of doing that activity. So that current scheme is winding down and will be replaced by something that's more efficient. And we also provide financial grants to help with social inclusion, and that covers a whole spectrum of different types of scheme and operation. Independent living, particularly for the veteran population, probably not much there that will surprise you in terms of what we're able to do with funding for beneficiaries. Home adaptations and aids, that could be something from just fitting bars onto a veteran's property to help with mobility, or it could be something more extensive, such as fitting a wet room, fitting a stair lift, and carrying out some quite major work to a house. Where possible, if we can, and if we can assist somebody in staying in their own home rather than having to go into residential care, if that's what they are clearly wanting to do, then we will look at being able to fund those sorts of works. We also provide care costs. We have a scheme running where we've provided top-up fees for people who are struggling to meet the fees of their care homes. Clearly, it can put families into a really very tricky situation where a family member might be very comfortable and settled in the home they're in, and there would be a detrimental impact on their health, both physically and mentally, were they to move to somewhere that was more affordable. And as we know, care costs can be pretty horrendous. So in some cases, we're able to assist with that. We also run breaks. Obviously, haven't been able to do so much of that through COVID, but support to carers, caring for the carer, very, very important. And again, we get involved quite a lot in that respect. We also have the Disabled Holiday Trust. We can assist with mobility equipment. And the next one I'll touch on, advocacy. This is an area of quite extreme growth at the moment. We have found as we've gone through COVID that the calls on our advocacy services have risen by some degree, and the trends are suggesting it will continue to do so. That might be an area where we will provide additional resource, as I think we're probably at capacity with that at the moment, but that's really assisting people to ensure that they are getting the benefits and the financial support that they are entitled to, and engaging with local communities on their behalf to make local authorities on their behalf to make sure that that goes through. It can be tremendously stressful for those involved, and our team are very, very good at getting involved and helping out there. And we can also help with housing as well. We have a housing trust where we are able to provide housing for veterans at a cost that is affordable to them. In some cases, we've built houses where they've been specifically adapted to an individual's needs. We've got a super chap in Wales who lives just outside Cowbridge. He's one of our ambassadors, who was paralysed in a parachuting accident and obviously had to leave the Royal Air Force and then go through quite severe rehabilitation. We were able to build him a bungalow that absolutely suits his needs. It's close to all of his support, both family and medical. Although he did say he didn't want it to be too close to his family, but we were delighted to be able to help him with that, and that has given him a home for life as long as he wants to stay there, and it's a rent that is set not at market value but at what he is able to he is able to support. And we have about 200 houses in the housing trust, some specially adapted like Rob's, others less so. but it enables people to live, I think, with with a degree of comfort where otherwise they might not be able to. Financial assistance is a big part of what we do. We are not purely, as you've seen from the slides that preceded this one, we're not purely a grant giving organisation. Different military funds work in different ways. We cover the spectrum that I'm covering now, but we do give financial grants and assistance to beneficiaries when required. That can be for one-off grants. So somebody may find their boiler blows up, or there's something that needs immediate assistance and they simply don't have the finances to support that. Or it could be regular financial assistance, as I've outlined, with things like top-up fees, funeral expenses, of course, benefits advice we've already covered, and also, of course, we are able to signpost to other organisations. Just to elaborate on that slightly, we have, as a result of COVID, we have enhanced our signposting and the way that is administered. Previously, if somebody contacted us, we would refer them to another organisation if that was appropriate, and then wait for that organisation to come back to us. That, I think, was a weakness in the way that we were operating, and during COVID, because caseworkers, who are colleagues from RBL, SAFA, RAFA, because people were not able to get out and visit people, and also because those organisations in some places have had a drop-off in numbers of caseworkers, it meant that somebody might contact us, and then at some stage that would fall off. Either they would not take it further, or they would find that the waiting process without information in between was off-putting for them, and they wouldn't follow it through. Clearly there was something we needed to do about that, so we have now recruited as full-time members of staff what are called welfare navigators. So if somebody phones us now or contacts us by whatever means, the welfare navigator will effectively triage that individual or that family, and then we'll then select what organisations we need to be in contact with to support that individual, and will then oversee that. So let's say, for example, we refer to a caseworker so that a caseworker can become involved. The welfare navigator will be tracking that process all the way through. And that means that we know exactly where we are with each case. It means that if there are delays, for example, in some areas where there's not very good caseworker coverage, it might mean that we're able to spot that and pull somebody in from another area in order to ensure that that individual who's asked for support continues to receive it and continues to receive regular updates. And I think this is a really, really positive move. As I mentioned earlier, veterans are not great at asking for support. We need to make that process as simple as possible. And I can't help but feel that before, we may have had situations where somebody's found it really difficult to make the call. They've made the call, but then the process after it has prevented them from taking it further. Hopefully the welfare navigators now will be able to overcome that, will be able to deal with the individual personally and in a way that keeps them informed, makes them aware of the fact that we are looking after for them, and steps them through the process. So I really welcome that change, and we're really pleased to be doing that. We're also looking at potentially having an in-house caseworker capability, and this isn't common knowledge at the moment. It's still in development stages, because of course with that goes a price tag, but there's no doubt that there are some areas where geographically where caseworker coverage isn't great, but we know that there are people in those areas who are likely to need caseworker support. Also, an in-house caseworking capability will allow us to at the early stage where the case is triaged, identify anything that might be particularly complex and keep that one in-house, and so enable that one to be stepped through in a more positive and sort of methodical way. So that's sort of hot news at the moment, although not really for wider dissemination, as it's still in the early stages of development. Just a couple of other things there. Most of this I've already talked about, but these are really the areas where we've stepped up with in response to COVID-19. As I say, initially it went very quiet, and the number of people contacting us went down, and then it's just steadily increased and is continuing to increase now. And so these are the areas really where we have boosted support to the RAF family. In particular, what we've tried to do is make it easier to access our support. So I've touched on the navigators and the caseworkers. What we've also done is we've made it easier for people to access certain things online, where previously they would have needed a caseworker to work on their behalf. And so, for example, somebody can contact us with an online application now for a grant of up to £750 that doesn't require a caseworker to become involved, and that's normally for one-off expenses, things like domestic white goods or boilers or whatever that might be. And so hopefully that has made it much easier for people to access things at a lower level. Of course, the more complex or higher value items will still require a caseworker input. But we have our minor grants committees, which have continued virtually throughout the pandemic. They happen every 2 to 3 weeks. That's for any grant under £15,000, 15. Anything over that amount goes to major grants, and that's every 5 to 6 weeks. So if an individual were to contact us and they needed some form of assistance that took us above the £750 and into one of those two areas, a caseworker would work with that individual, pull together all of the information. So that could be RBL, SAFA, RAFA. That would then be submitted to our head office in London, where one of our welfare executives would work through that, prepare a case, which would then be presented by that individual to the from the fund to the one of those two committees. So normally one of those committees will see anything between 15 to 20 cases going through at any one time. There's an independent panel that sits there, a panel of professionals who work as volunteers for us, so they're not part of the fund, and they make a decision. 99.9% of the time a decision is made at that meeting, and funds will be immediately released afterwards. So the process of from picking up the phone and asking for support to delivering that support can be quite quick when it needs to be. I just thought I'd put in, to wind up, a couple of cases that will just give you an idea, and clearly we have these ladies and gentlemen very keen for us to use their cases to support what we do, and it just gives you a theme for the type of work that we've got involved with. So Leroy here was in the RAF for 28 years, sadly diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and retired after a particularly bad relapse in his condition. He was finding it very difficult to move around his house, and in fact had to live downstairs on his sofa using the utility room for his ablutions, and was having real severe mobility issues. He contacted us. A caseworker was able to work with Leroy, and as a result of that, we've provided a chairlift for his house, installed a wet room upstairs, which made it much easier for him to look after himself, and provided riser recliner chairs and one of these beds that allowed the height to be changed for him to get in and out more easily. And you know, he was very generous and said he'd like us to use his case as an example, and we were delighted to be able to help him. A slightly different case here. Andrew was made redundant from the Royal Air Force. He served 7 or 8 years in the Royal Air Force, and sadly, after leaving the Air Force, found it quite difficult to cope. He developed quite severe OCD to the point where he's actually pretty much unable to leave the house without going through a significant number of rituals. We he contacted us. Listening and counselling service became involved and have stepped in through a process to recovery in line with some of our partners. And you know, he's a tremendous example of what can be done if people can get involved at the right time. And you know, he's said to us in the past, "What you did saved my life." It's his condition had got under control, and he was finding it very difficult to cope. And then we have Reg here, who at the age of 87, he'd served 3 years in the RAF. So again, not a vocational, long time service person, but he served 3 years in the RAF in the 50s, 54 to 57, and was suffering very much from loneliness. And he's involved in the chats, the telephone friendship groups, and the check and chat calls that we do. And it's tremendous. It's volunteers from the fund who get engaged with this. I have 1-2 weekly chat with a gentleman I've got today throughout the pandemic. And sadly, for some of these people, it's the only contact they might have if family have moved away or they don't have family. And it's just something that has been a great privilege to be able to become involved with, and something that we will continue to roll out as we step through the campaign and beyond. We thought this would be something that would last probably for the period of the pandemic. We've learned a lot of lessons from this, and in fact, although some people will transfer across to Silverline or telephone friendship groups, we will provide enduring support that those that wish to have the weekly chats. So just a few examples there of what we've done, but hopefully that adds a little bit of colour to what the fund is trying to do. Just finally, and I'm very happy to take any questions you may have. I mentioned the fact that we're trying to reach out to more people. We had a big campaign in 2019, which was our centenary year. It was a television campaign, and we had a very good response to that. We went from 57,000 people to 71,000 beneficiaries in the space of a year. But I think what we did with that is we collected the low-hanging fruit, if you like. What is really evident to us is that there are veterans across the whole of the UK that are in need of our support. And as good as these campaigns can be, what they don't do is get into the harder to reach areas where we know there to be veterans who might wish to reach out to us. The idea behind being able to talk to yourselves and forums like yours is to make you as veteran supporters available, that we are here, and to pass that message on of support, that the RAF Benevolent Fund is there for people who are part of the RAF family, and that we will maintain contact with you and anybody else that you put us in touch with, in order to make sure that we can support areas that traditionally we haven't had a great profile in the past, and may not have been aware of us. So thank you very much indeed for your time today. I know it's a bit of a machine gunning through of slides, but I am very grateful to you for listening. Thanks very much indeed.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Neil. Let me share my screen again, and we'll then go to the next forum. We want to know what you want for our next forum. The proposal will be maybe in face-to-face or even online and face-to-face, with breakout rooms for funding, for volunteering, and for governance as well. The date of this is to be confirmed. We're looking probably middle of September. We have got the, as I say, the contact us if you do need any further support from today's session, or about volunteering or funding or anything else like that. But apart from that, if anybody has any other questions, because I can see we've gone over our time. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free, or we can follow up on any support after this session today. I will be posting in the chat the feedback form for today's session, so I'd be very grateful if you could fill that in and feedback to us any comments on today's session. Rosanna.
Hiya. I just had a question. I wondered if I could use your collective knowledge. So I work for a charity that supports adults with learning disabilities. And one of the things we're looking at the moment is volunteering and employment opportunities for people with learning disabilities. And we're really finding there's a lot of barriers there. So firstly, we're finding barriers in terms of finding opportunities for people. And there may be opportunities out there and we just don't know about them. But secondly, just that we don't think there's that many opportunities that people are presenting as being able to be tailored for individuals or accessible. And so the third thing is we're not sure if there are any groups or networks or anything out there that can sort of support or are working on anything like this around learning disability, volunteering and employment. So I wondered if anybody had any sort of thoughts around that or had any knowledge they could share.
I'm happy to come in on that one if you like, Patrick.
Yes, carry on, Callum.
Pat's put her hand up as well.
Yeah.
So Pat's our health and wellbeing facilitator, so perhaps she'll have a few bits to add. But firstly, Rosanna, I think I mentioned the Volunteer Management Forum, certainly a space in which we'll be having these kinds of discussions and, you know, putting these kind of points on those agendas there. So would encourage you to come along to those. I think it probably is a bit of an issue. I think it is a lack of opportunities potentially. Is it Myris you work with, Rosanna? Yeah. So I mean, I think it's a lack of opportunities generally at the moment. You know, with COVID still being in place and restrictions. But yeah, maybe Rosanna, we pick up and have a chat sometime soon. I think if we can arrange a 30 minutes or something over Teams for a catch up, and you know, we can have a bit more of a chat around some specifics. But yeah, in terms of some forums, I certainly would suggest the management one. But then there's Tourvine Access Forum now, which colleagues over at DAP, Disability Advice Project, sort of lead on, which they're building quite slowly. But this would be certainly a space to bring that conversation in there as well. They met just the other week, I believe, but I'm sure we can give you some information and some contact details to join that forum there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Callum.
I don't know whether Pat wanted to come in on anything.
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
It's Pat from Tourvine Voluntary Alliance. Morning or afternoon, everybody. Obviously, one of the problems that you've got at the moment is the shielding that we've had to, go through. Basically, people with a learning disability also come under shielding mostly. So that's like an added barrier, isn't it, Rosanna? Yeah. Yeah, we find that. What I would say, under normal circumstances, let's pretend everything's, as it was, I would say People First are very good. I'm sure you know about People First, but they do a lot of petitioning and campaigning, and that in itself is almost like a volunteering role, and it gives a purpose, and they do it in a group, as you know, and they go out and they're ambassadors for those with learning disability. That's the first thing I would say, and I'd mention the Gwent Charter as well, to coincide with that. I'm thinking about volunteering matters. Now, I don't know if you've had a lot to do with volunteering matters. I think if I would get in touch with Volunteering Matters. They're based in Pontypool under normal circumstances, and they do a lot with people, not necessarily with a learning disability, but various, and I know they do have people with autism and those kind of conditions under their wings, so to speak, and they do marvellous work. So look into Volunteering Matters. We can give you the contacts for that.
Just quickly on that one, they've got the SAFE project, haven't they, Pat?
They've got the SAFE project, but they've got a holistic wraparound as well. I mean, basically, it's young people I'm talking about, Rosanna. It depends on the age that you're talking about. Yeah, they have got the SAFE program, but that is for up to 25 years of age, so anybody over that, obviously. But there's other projects they got, and they call it things like mental health matters and that sort of thing. So I'd look into that if I were you. And I know it is a difficult problem. Volunteering's always been a difficult problem, but even more so now. And like I say, with the shielding issues, that doesn't help, does it? So I don't know if that's useful at all, but that's what I would have advised if if you'd asked me that question.
No, that's definitely useful. Thank you for that.
All right, and if you need, contacts, just get in touch with us via email, and we'll give you the contacts as well for the people that you might like to talk to about how they can help you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Pat.
Okay.
And with that, I think if nobody else has any further questions, or if you do have any further questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you for attending today. We will be, of course, sending out the presentation from ourselves and from the RAF Benevolent Fund too. But apart from that, thank you very much. Please fill in the feedback form and have a fantastic Wednesday.